Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope everyone's well, in the best of health, in the best of states, as we carry on in our pursuit for meaning. So, after releasing our last episode called Expose of the Trojan Horse, called quasa.sg, I felt it was important to share with you guys some key things that we can take from the talk. I mentioned quite a few things, like postmodernism. There's no such thing as objective truths. And I want to be able to frame it for you guys. A simple way to understand, one, how to deal with such perspectives. And number two, what are the kind of questions that they will come up with. And why do we feel a certain way when these questions come up to us. The first question, how is it wrong for two consensual adults to do whatever they want to do with each other? Like, what is your problem? Well, how is it wrong? They both of them consent. Why is it your problem? Why do you have a problem with it? And so most of us, like, unfortunately, like when I even hear it from sometimes like Muslims as well, like to justify their ignorance of the meaning of what is goes behind this entire question. However, we actually agree with that. The Muslims actually agree that we should get that every sexual act has to be consented. It has to be consented. There has to be approval from the owners of the bodies. From the owner of the body, there has to give consent for the act to be done. If the owner of the body does not give consent for the acts, then you'll be wrong and immoral and unjustified to do. So in a Muslim perspective, from Islamic perspective, we don't own our bodies. Allah owns our bodies. Allah owns everybody's bodies. So because He owns our bodies and He has the ultimate consent on what can be done and cannot be done to our bodies. And this is one of the ideological shifts of the difference between how we look at the world and how these materialists and people who are affected by this Western, I wouldn't say like this French Enlightenment materialistic influences. They see that their body belongs to them. They do not look at this entire thing, the idea of consent, the idea of ownership, that our bodies do not belong to us and it belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you look at the world in that perspective, that you are not the owners of your body. In fact, you are just renting. And these bodies will be returned back to his owner at the right and the appointed time. Then this whole perspective of what this means and what it does and what it means for them will change as well. So yeah, you can agree with them, but say for the Muslim, the one who, in our perspective as a Muslim, from a Muslim's perspective, is that God owns our bodies, and God, because He is the owner of our bodies, has the ultimate say on what can be done and what cannot be done. Number two, the Quran doesn't speak about same-sex marriages or same-sex relationships. The Quran does not speak of it negatively. In fact, the Quran only mentions about rape. This is one of the biggest and most mind-boggling lies and atrocity that these woke fanatics will try to do. When I mention about this postmodernism, this is the root of it. They will go to any verse of the Quran or any verse for that matter, any text for that matter, and they'll be able to interpret it in the way they want to interpret it. When it's very clear from our perspective, for 1,400 years plus, that is clearly forbidden. And there's so many verses which justifies and prove that. However, for these people who have no idea or actually they have an idea, but because they choose not want to see it, they want to impose their views onto it, because for them they are gods. They create their own truths, they create their own meanings, and so for them it's okay. They will impose these so-called perspectives onto the Quran. However, alhamdulillah, the Quran is protected from such adulterations and changes in its understanding. So Allah mentions in the Quran, Surah Al-A'raf, Surah 7, verse 80 to 82, He says, "And remember when Lord scolded the men of His people, saying, do you commit a shameful deed that no man has ever done before? You lust after men instead of women. You are certainly transgressors." But his people only response was to say, "Expel them from your land. They are people who we wish to remain chaste." And this is the same cancel culture we have today. These woke fanatics or this kaum Lut, what will they do? They will, if you say no to them, you say, "No, I do not agree to your perspective. I do not agree in your adulteration and changing and bastardization of our text." What will they do to you? They will cancel you. They will try to cancel you from every single situation. And most people, unfortunately, even I know of people like close friends and families who watch my videos and agrees with me. But they will never, they have this fear of sharing, or fear of giving a response, out of the fear of their jobs, out of the fear of their careers, of the fear of cancellation. But people live with this their own. I mean, I'm not gonna say anything, but everyone will live through their own choices. So alhamdulillah, for us, the same methodology changes. The same methodology remains. They call the people of the time of Nabi Lut, the people who refuse to practice this, as people who want to remain chaste. And they ridicule it as though it's something it's like a joke. And so yeah, in Islamic perspective, from Islam as a Muslim, same-sex relationships, marriages, or whatever you want to call it, is haram and forbidden, and there's no place in the religion. Number 3, it's just your opinion. Haven't we all heard this one? It happens most of the time, especially when someone gets pushed into a corner and they don't know what to say, and it's just like, it's just your opinion. I remember in school, I don't know you guys, I remember or heard of this before. My teacher will say to me, "Why do you assume? Why do you assume? Don't you know that assuming makes an ass out of me and you?" Anyway, it's just your opinion. Opinions, assumptions at best. Thinking they're just assumptions. But in all honesty, like, from an Islamic perspective, we all are not, not even Islamic perspective, from a logical perspective, not everyone is entitled to opinion. Does not mean you have opinion means it is the right opinion, or you can have the opinion in your mind. No one can rip that opinion out of your mind, but does not mean that it is legitimate or is valid or is sound. It just means that you have an idea in your mind. Whether it's right or wrong, who knows? And not everybody is supposed to have an opinion. Because a person having an opinion that 3 + 7 = 1, is he entitled to that opinion? Is it true? Is it valid? He has that in his mind. He thinks it to be true. But does it even matter? But we should propose this question. Maybe we all shouldn't have our own opinions. Maybe when we have our own opinions, it might be a problem. Maybe it's time for us to go back and realize that maybe we all should not have opinions. Maybe we should leave opinions to those who should have opinions and take their opinions instead. Why do I mean this? I mean, one of the biggest issues we have today, I was mentioning a lot in the previous video, was about postmodernism. What is postmodernism? Is basically a new way of thinking, where they destroy every structure of what is conceived to be truth. Let me give you some background of how this all happened. It all began with materialism. Some time ago, and not land too far away, not too long ago, materialism became one of the most important ways of thinking. What is materialism? It is the removal of God from the picture, the sacralization of all knowledge, sacralization of governance, sacralization of knowledge, everything was God was removed out of it. And what did they make as the most important arbiter of truth? Was reason. So from a Muslim perspective, in that period, of course, we look as a Muslim, we look at things with Allah, everything in the picture. But it was not so problematic because we could reason with people to understand things using logic. The reason was a faculty that we could that we could use as an arbiter to discuss and to come on common grounds, because logic or reason was an important factor to communicate between different communities. So when logic was around or reason was around, it was not too bad. Things was, even though in general the Muslims suffered from other aspects, but to exist and to be able to have a communication and live in civil societies, having reason was good, because at least we had a yardstick, a common ground which we could deal with people. So after modernism and entered our age now called postmodernism, and historically it happened it was really pushed on faster after the world wars. And this idea of postmodernism was that they question, is reason necessary? Is reason a valid arbiter to gain certainty? Can we even trust our reason at all? So what does this mean for all of us? It means if we can't trust reason, we can't trust our mind, what is there to trust? It means everything is open interpretation. Everything is subjective. Everything has no meaning. You create your own meaning. And this is postmodernism. This is the reason why we see today the problems that we have today is not something they just pop out of nowhere. It came from somewhere. When you remove God that many years ago, and what do we have today? We are just the result of the logical conclusions of the experiments of people before. This is the reason why for us as Muslims of this 21st century, for us to really think about where are we and where do we fit in this history of the universe, or the history of the human existence. When we look into our moment right now, the here and the right now, when we look to ourselves right now, and all of this, Heidegger called it the thrownness, your environment, the situation you're in, you look yourself helpless and meaningless. But remove yourself from this environment. Just remove yourself as a person born in this 21st century, and remove yourself from all the pressures of society on, and ask yourself, if there was no societal pressures, who will you become? And this is an important question, because it's the same questions the same question we ask the people of Nazi Germany. Who were they when the Nazis were killing the Jews? What were they doing? What are we doing? And what is the result of all of this? Is they have a very, very big problem. What is a woman? This was done by a recent documentary by a man called Matt Walsh. He did a documentary called What is a Woman? And we see the problem of postmodernism. We see the decay of the human reason gone to the rubbish bin. They can't answer this question. this most simple answer. The fact that we are alive is because of a woman. And yet these people are unable to tell you what a woman is. We understand the woman experience might be subjective. Every woman lives subjective lives. But what is a woman? A woman is a biological female with specific chromosomes who has the capacity to give birth and so on and so forth. But these people are unable to answer this question. This postmodernism will call what is a woman a vibe. What is a woman? A vibe. I feel like a woman. Da, da. You know that song? So what is the source of this thinking? And you ask them the question, what is a man? And they will tell you a misogynist. That's what all men are today, Every man, the woman will look at the majority of women, engulfed by the zeitgeist of our time, will look at men with contempt, Like, what is a man? A misogynist. We don't need them. We don't need them. I'm independent. I don't need to protect them. I am the same as a man. I can do whatever he can do. Unfortunately, most Muslims have sucked into this. We have accepted that this ideology that men and women are the same, and this is why it has become even more difficult for us to approach this topic, because in ourselves we have formulated so-called truths that is founded upon falsehood. And maybe it's about time for us to rekindle and rethink these ideas that we have. Number 4. You are a bigot. How can you not give me my right of identity and dignity? Haven't you heard this? Maybe most of you don't hear this, but most of us fear this. And I have had my share of this, some messages, some comments after the Quasa episode. I'm not surprised. I don't really care anyway. And I hope the best for these people. I hope they can see the irrational, the human decadence they are in. And I wish them well. And it's not coming from hate at all. I just want to tell you guys, whatever I'm saying does not come from hate. It is my attempt to give you a perspective. Hopefully, they will my attempt to give you a perspective that hopefully will change the way you look at the world, and hopefully save yourself from the calamity as you grow older and you face the internal crisis of where this entire movement is leading you to. Anyway, and I also want to say something. We are not bigots. The people who are sharing you this, they're not bigots. And it can't be bigots. Because if we don't care, we just leave it alone. But because we care, and it comes from this idea of love, that we cannot help ourselves from sharing this with you guys, and sharing this with people who we care, so that you guys do not fall into the fire pits of life. The same way I will not let my child walk into a fire pit. It's the same way I'm telling you. And it does not come from a space of it does not come from a perspective of hate. It comes from a perspective of love and care and concern for the entire human existence. But most importantly, how should we respond to these people when they say these kind of things? We should say this: you are offended? You are offended by my religious beliefs? How dare you get offended and ridicule my religious beliefs? Is it your colonial privileged perspectives that allows you to have such ideas on people, minority position to give. Haven't you seen the amount of Islamophobia that is happening to Muslims around the world? I'm offended that you're offended. How dare you say these kind of things to me? You hate me and call me a bigot because of my beliefs, because of my minority beliefs, because of the beliefs that I'm trying to hold on, even with the onset of Islamophobia around us. What amount of privilege do you have? Maybe you should try that. Most important, I mean, most important, just to be serious, most importantly is that we need to be confident. Confidence is key in our time. I understand it's very difficult for most people. I can empathize and understand that it's very difficult for normal people to share or to speak about these ideas because everything's so subjective. You are afraid to have a position on anything because you're afraid to offend this person, you're afraid to offend that person. Jack, John, Adam, Kamal, all of these different people. You're just afraid to have a position because any position might be wrong. It might be offending of something. And this is the beauty of Islam, is that when you learn it, and when you, and of course, don't learn from dodgy guys, dodgy people who teach you ridiculous things. But most people, they have some sort of traditional base, some sort of, guidelines on how to find the right understandings. But one of the key things I would say, don't find teachers who are sellouts. Sellouts are dangerous, sellouts. It's a lot of sellouts, sellouts are very compromising in their nature. you know I've seen many sellouts, met many sellouts, and sellouts, may Allah guide them and help them. Back to what I was saying is that I know it can be quite disheartening, you know and to have a confident belief in your religion when everyone else is believing something else. Your colleagues at the workplace, the news, the TV, Netflix, everyone is telling you a different story. Everyone is telling you that your values that you have is wrong, and the values that you have are backward. The values that you have are bigotry. And it's very difficult. I mean, the idea of being alone is very difficult. The idea of holding on to truth like this can be very difficult in our time. I always remember, whenever I think about this, is when I remember the words of the Prophet ﷺ. He said, there will come a time where holding on to the truth is like holding on to hot coals, because it's very difficult. It's extremely difficult to have pressures around you, sometimes friends, sometimes families, the people close to you, who thinks otherwise. And when you feel alone and you have no place, that your beliefs and your understandings of this of what is truth and what is real for you, because of your pursuit for truth, it can be very, very difficult. It can be depressing. And sometimes in that kind of situations, it can lead you to even have doubts on your beliefs. Whenever you are in such a position, ask Allah for help. Inshallah, He will get us out of that situations. He will get us out from that darkness of doubt and waham. But the most importantly is to be confident. and to believe and know that you are not alone, and that you are watched and witnessed by Allah every moment. I remember one of my sheikhs, my teachers, he said, I remember he saying this, he said, he mentioned about one of the great Sufis. He said, Sahla Tustari. Sahla Tustari had a special zikr, or remembrance, or a recitation, or rosary, that he was consistently doing all the time. And it was Allahu Ma'i, Allahu Nazari, Allahu Shahidin alayh. Which means Allah is with me, Allah sees me, and Allah is a witness of my actions. And this was one of the ways which he gained the state of witnessing of Allah, witnessing of God. And for us, we might not get that. We hope to get such an experience. However, knowing that Allah is witnessing us all the time, He is with us, not in any anthropomorphical way. He sees us without any anthropomorphical way, and is a witness to our actions, in no form of anthropomorphism, in all times. And all difficulties that we face, and all hardship that we face, is directly witnessed by Him. The darkness of our hearts, in the quietness, in the hidden vessels of our hearts, even in those quiet, personal, alone spaces, He hears and He is witnessing all of it. So don't feel depressed when such situations happen. Uplift yourself. Raise your degree higher. Don't be defeated, and don't think that you are alone. And when you feel like that, when you think like that, what happens is you will be an inspiration for a source of good. People are always looking for role models. People are always looking for people who you can count on. And the most important people who you want to be role models for, especially for fathers, is your children and your direct family members. Be a role model for them. And when you hold up for the truth, hold on strongly for the truth, and stand up for the truth as highly and mightily as you can, following the beloved ways of the Prophet ﷺ, which is by mercy, by graciousness, by compassion, you will see everything change. And how do we do this change? Is that when we don't become sellouts. I remember meeting one of my friends. It's a very interesting person. This person. He comes from a very prestigious, I would say prestigious job. Very influential person. He was telling me a story. He's Muslim, and his boss was not Muslim. And so his boss used to invite him for drinks, and he used to go for drinks and stuff like that with his boss. And then one day his boss said to him this. His boss said to him, "I like you, bro. You're a moderate Muslim. I like you." And that shook him, from what I remember. That shook him. And led him to rethink his entire, what was he doing? What is he becoming? And what is his purpose in his world? And what we need to become. No. Muslims, non-Muslims, whoever you are. What we need to become, my Muslim brothers and sisters, is a cognitive dissonance. What is a cognitive dissonance? Is that we need to be a cognitive dissonance for the world at large. Because the entire world has been giving us a certain narrative. The entire world has branded us as this backward, stupid, according to Irie Green Kabaya, as a hypocritical community who has a lot of problems. What we need to be is a cognitive dissonance for everyone who, unfortunately, based on our current zeitgeist, has got a preconceived stereotypes on us. And when we uphold our values as being true Muslims, who hold on to our values of truth and show the world the prophetic model of what is nobility, what happens is they will change, we will create a cognitive dissonance. They will see the world like, what? This guy is a Muslim. I've never seen this kind of Muslim before. He does not reflect the kind of Muslims I see on TV. He does not reflect the kind of Muslims that is going that I see in the news. People and all that kind of stuff. Be a source of positive change for those around you. And lastly, when we embody the true prophetic model of being, change is inevitable. Of course, we're not saying that you can change the entire world and stuff, but changes in your life, changes those around you, changes the people around you, and these changes will affect the world slowly but surely. Have you heard of the butterfly effect? That a flap of a butterfly's wings on this side of the world is causing a hurricane on the other side of the world. And we as Muslims need to be beacons of lights wherever we are. Be confident of your beliefs. Don't be sellouts. Don't trust sellouts. Hold on to your beliefs. Stand firmly. Learn and understand that what we have is a cure for an entire world. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.